Every time you level up in 7 Days to Die, you will get skill points. If you complete the tutorial, you'll even get a couple for free. Now, where you spend those skill points is going to depend very much on what sort of a build you want. Perception is generally a sniper build. You engage things from afar, using a spear as well as a sniper rifle, and you can even blow things up with demolitions. Strength is going to give you the ability to use shotguns as well as the very serious sledgehammers. You also have a fortitude build. They like to punch things in the face as well as use machine guns. The agility build is much more about sneaking around and hitting things with arrows as well as guns and knives. And finally we have the intellect build. The intellect revolves around the stun baton or batons in general, and later on can get you some very potent turrets. But regardless of what build you go for, what perks should you pick up? For this particular guide, I'm going to go on assumption that you only get the base level. So for perception, you only get 1 out of 10. There are a couple of candidates for perception. They're all in the scavenging part. Lucky Looter is my pick here. Lucky Looter, even if it's just 1 point, you put that into Slim Chance under the Lucky Looter perk. This adds a mere 5% to loot bonus. And this means that your loot chance, or rather your chance of generating better loot, is going to go up. That's not strictly why we're getting it. Looting is 10% faster. That's the reason why you should be getting this perk. The 10%, it might not seem like a lot, but you'll be looting a lot throughout this game. You'll be opening containers left and right, whether it is opening the trunk of a car, which tends to take up to 5 seconds, whether it's trying to get into a safe, whether it's trying to get into a container. Every time you interact with a container, it takes a little bit of time. So that 10% loot bonus is very nice to have. An alternative would be Treasure Hunter, but this is a bit more niche. For every 7 blocks, you are going to be reducing the treasure search radius. Most people don't like the search quest, the dig quest, so I don't really recommend this one. And Salvage Operations is useful, but it also depends very much on what sort of a build you're going for. You might not need to do that much salvaging. If you're going for a questing build, which I would say is part of the intellect tree, you don't strictly need this. But Lucky Looter, looting things, no matter whether you're running around with sledgehammers, shooting up the place with an agility build, going up and punching people in the face with a brawler, it doesn't matter. You will always be looting. 5% loot bonus, not that important, but looting 10% faster, that adds up, especially over the long run. Strength. It is pretty straightforward here. Mother Lode. This is Pay Dirt. You found your first small vein and are envy of all Johnny Newcomes. This means you get 20% more from any ore block or stone block or terrain block, as well as trees that you try to harvest. Again, 20% might not seem like a whole lot, but it adds up, especially in the long run. Early game, you'll be able to get more from trees, and as such, potentially build a, well, let's say, a minor horde base with some wood. Or you'll be able to craft a few more spike traps, capable of at least deterring the enemy if you're inside a location that you might have gotten overwhelmed in. Later on, you'll be able to get more from ore, maybe mining ores, such as iron as well as coal to keep those furnaces going. You'll also be able to get more when you're mining nitrate, and especially if you tandem that with coal, you'll be getting gunpowder. And you can get 20% more from those resources. The alternative could be Miner 69er. This one is an alternative because it increases tool damage as well as block damage by 30%. You'll also be reducing your stamina cost for power attacks. Now, power attacks is something that most units or most builds will use. So you're going to be using a power attack, and as opposed to just paying, let's say, full stamina price, you're going to be getting a slight reduction. That slight stamina cost reduction could save your life. 8%, it's not that impressive. 15% is getting there. But you'll be doing stamina attacks or power attacks all the time. So getting a very slight reduction can be useful for any build. Master Chef, not necessarily useful unless you're going to be eating a lot. I wouldn't recommend it. Pack Mule, No. This is a trap. You can carry 3 more items without being encumbered. No, don't go for this. It is not very valuable. Heavy armor is only if you're going to be using heavy armor, so it is definitely not recommended for a more, let's say, general build. It's not something that any build can use. Fortitude. You might consider healing factor, but I think this one is a trap. Fast metabolism is going to allow you to gain 1 health every 35 seconds with natural healing. You'll also heal your critical injuries a bit faster. It might sound great. You're getting passive healing. Lovely. What's not to like? Well, you'll go through food like you wouldn't believe. The amount of food you're going to take is absolutely astronomical, as it takes about 1 point of food value to heal back 1 point of health. This means that, let's say that a piece of grilled meat that you have is going to give you 10 health. If you get hit by a Zed a couple times, you might be losing 20, 30, 40 bits of health. That's a lot of food you'll be going through. So a healing factor is not what I would recommend for any build. But rule 1, cardio is just put 1 foot in front of the other. You're now a hiker. Increase stamina regen by 10% when sprinting. So you're not actually going to be regenerating stamina, but your sprinting is going to cost you a little bit less. Any character is going to have to run at some point. You'll have to run away from a threat. You'll have to run to get back to your base. You'll have to run to get to the trader. You'll have to get to the next POI that you might be raiding. Rule 1 cardio always comes in useful. Another more, let's say, generalist perk that you could consider, but I would recommend against, is Iron Gut. This one is going to allow you to hold your breath a little longer. Most of the time, you don't swim. Maybe 5% of the game, if that. Of course, it's going to depend heavily on what sort of a base you have. If you want to have a water base, this might come in useful. The other bonus that you get is reduction from food and water loss from physical exertion. Any physical activity you undertake, whether it's punching a Zed, harvesting some trees, or getting a bunch of ore, it's going to take physical exertion. And as such, your character will grow hungry and thirsty. 5% of a bonus, though, isn't nearly as good as the cardio. So I would highly recommend you pick the cardio one. Fortitude also has a couple of other ones. You can go for Pelter, but this is a bit more geared towards a character who might also want to go into cooking. I wouldn't strictly put this on the everybody should get this list. Well insulated, this is something that might sound good. You gain 10 insulation against cold and heat. And you lose 15% less food when you're cold or overheating. You can get the same effects from mods attached to your inventory, or sorry, to your armor. This is not very useful. Living off the land is going to gather more results from any planted crops or wild crops, and you reduce the cost of farm plots. There are plenty of other ways to gain food. There are plenty of other ways to gain resources. You don't need living off the land on every typical character you can be building. Pain tolerance is potentially one that you might want to consider. Yet, for a more ranged character, for example, a sniper, a machine gunner, you don't need this. You reduce health loss by 5% when you take a hit, and you have 20% less chance to get stunned. Decent, but again, if you are not in range to get stunned, or if you're not in range to get hit in the first place, you won't need this. So in this case, I don't particularly consider pain tolerance to be very good. Rule 1 cardio, that's the one you should get. Agility. Interesting options here. The first couple are the more damaged build, so like the previous ones, I don't think that they're particularly useful for any build, or rather every build. Run and gun is a perk that I would recommend to any character. You're going to be running away from a threat, and your machine gun has just run out. Unfortunate. If you want to reload that, you're basically doing that at a walking pace, which means that whatever's running after you will catch up and will start to kill you. This is going to matter whether you're a sniper, whether you're a machine gunner, whether you're an archer, whether you're a shotgunner. It doesn't matter what sort of a gun you have, you will always want to be able to run away when you're reloading that weapon. Spray and pray helps you with that by 30%. Hipfire accuracy is not something I typically use. I'm always aiming when I'm using a weapon. But when you get machine guns, you might be able to spray and pray a little bit more. So hipfire accuracy might be more useful to you. But that movement penalty, or rather the reduction of movement penalty, very, very useful. Another one you could consider, especially if you have a tendency to break out of POIs quickly, is parkour. Increases the safe fall distance by 1 meter and reduces stamina cost of jumping by 10%. So let's say that this building over here, I want to get out the windows on that particular floor, or maybe even the one above. I might be able to jump down and not immediately break a leg. That would be particularly useful. But it's not useful for everybody. If you're perfectly fine keeping everything at range or killing everything and just walking out the front door, you don't need parkour. It's not that useful. Medium armor, like heavy armor that we have seen in the strength tree, in the strength tree, it's a bit more niche. It's a bit more geared towards whether or not you're using heavy armor. And when it comes to the stealth perks, not everybody is going to use stealth perks. If you are using heavy armor, if you are preparing to use a heavy armor and a shotgun, you're not going to be particularly silent. So you won't need hidden strike, which is going to give you more sneak attack damage. And you probably also won't need from the shadows, which is going to allow you to be less noisy and a bit faster when you're sneaking. For intellect, I would highly recommend the Daring Adventurer. This looter perk allows you, if you're questing that is, to get 5% more dukes from quests. Now, considering that some items with traders can be very expensive, having just 5% more income might not sound like a lot, but if you start doing the higher tier quests, it can add up to quite a lot of money. This is a bit contentious, this point, because not everybody is gonna go and visit traders or go questing. It might not be for you. If you are not going questing, but you still want to interact with a trader, you could pick Better Barter. It's going to give you 5% better deal buying and selling merchandise with traders. So this way, if you're not strictly interested in questing, this is going to always be useful when you're interacting with a trader. If you are not interested in working with a trader at all, you could just forego both of these points. Both Better Barter and Daring Adventure are probably not going to be that useful. Anything else from the tree here? Well, not strictly. If you look at Apprentice as part of the Advanced Engineering, you gain 15% from electrical kills. It's pretty high tier, and you might not use electrical traps, so I wouldn't strictly recommend that. Items craft 20% faster at the forge. Yeah, that can be useful. I think almost every playthrough can use a forge. As well as crafting glue cheaper. Yeah, it's useful, but you can just as easily buy your glue or find it in loot. So you don't strictly need it. Lockpicking. Again, there are multiple ways to go around this particular obstacle. Yes, you can lockpick. Yes, you can use the lockpicks to open a locked safe, for example. But you can also just take a sledgehammer or a pickaxe or even a salvage tool to that safe. And if you have enough time and stamina, you will get it open. So this is another one of those perks that I don't really think you strictly need. So, in quick order, what do you need? I highly recommend Lucky Looter. Another perk point goes into Mother Load, so that you'll be able to get more from any mining action that you do. In Endurance, you get Rule 1 Cardio, you become a hiker. In the Agility tree, you reload with Run and Gun. For strictly melee characters, you could forego this one, and instead, for example, pick Parkour. And with the Intellect, personally, I do a lot of quests, so the Daring Adventurer is for me. But if you are more interested in just trading every now and then, I would pick Better Barter. Then again, these are my picks. Which ones are yours? Let me know down below in the comments. I very much look forward to seeing what sort of perks you think are absolutely essential to have. And if you have any questions about what perks are potentially good for any particular type of build, let me know down below, and I might be able to answer your question in a comment. Thank you for watching, I hope you found it useful, and I'll see you soon for more.